The old man's knees hit the asphalt with a dull, wet smack. He exhaled once, sharp, as the pain shot up his thighs and into his hips. It was early evening on Westbourne Avenue, the time of day when the city's lights softened and bounced off glass storefronts and the chrome of passing cars. But right here, right now, the glow had turned harsh and cold. Red and blue lights pulsed across his face. "On your knees," the younger cop barked, though the man was already there. "Hands laced behind your head. Don't you move." Traffic had stalled in both directions. A delivery truck idled, blinkers on. A rideshare driver leaned sideways out his window, phone held high. The air was thick with exhaust, the smell of roasted garlic from the bistro on the corner, and an electric current of disbelief. The old man, Leonard Hayes, 72 years old, dark skin creased by decades of sun and worry, laced his fingers behind his head with deliberate slowness. His brown cardigan bunched at the shoulders. A folder he'd been carrying lay spilled on the sidewalk in front of him, paper edges fluttering in the exhaust wind like frightened birds. "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time," the cop said. "What are you doing in front of this building?" Leonard stared straight ahead at the cracked line of paint that divided the lanes. His voice, when it came, was calm, dry. The voice of a man who had long ago expended his capacity for surprise at this sort of thing. "Already told you, officer," he said. "I'm just standing on my sidewalk." "It's not your sidewalk," the cop snapped. His nameplate read C. Matthews. He was maybe 30, square, jaw clamped tight, hand resting on his holstered weapon like it was the anchor keeping him from being swept away. "You were harassing customers, refusing to leave when management asked you. We got multiple calls, suspicious mail, loitering, aggressive. I spoke to one young man about littering," Leonard said, still kneeling. "I asked him to use the trash can instead of the street. If that's what we're calling aggression now, the world's changed more than I thought. Don't get smart with me." Matthews stepped closer, boots planted wide at the edge of Leonard's field of vision. The concrete was rough beneath Leonard's kneecaps. He could feel the grit digging in. "You got ID?" "It's in my jacket pocket," Leonard said. "Left side. I'd like your permission to reach for it slowly." "Negative," the other officer said. She was standing a few feet back, watching the growing circle of onlookers. Her nameplate read Torres. Her eyes were shielded behind dark lenses, but there was something in her posture, a tension, a hesitation. "We'll retrieve it." "That's fine," Leonard said. He swallowed, the motion visible in his thin neck. "But it might be easier if you just call this in. Check the property records. Ask your sergeant who just signed the deed." "Sir, you need to stop talking," Matthews cut in. "You do not give me instructions. You understand?" Leonard's jaw tensed. "I understand," he said quietly. The crowd was thickening on the sidewalk. A couple in workout clothes paused, earbuds hanging loose, their faces a mix of curiosity and discomfort. A woman with a stroller angled for a better look, then seemed to think better of it and rolled the baby back a few feet. Near the door of the gleaming new coffee bar that had opened last month, a young barista in a branded apron watched with pale, anxious eyes. Beside him, the manager, a man in a blazer, phone pressed his ear, kept glancing between Leonard and the cops as if measuring liability in real time. A college-age woman in a yellow hoodie had her phone up, live streaming. The screen shimmered with comments as her viewers reacted in real time. "OMG, not again. Why he on his knees? Call a lawyer. This is Westbourne and 6th, right? I'm around the corner." Her voice, quiet but firm, threaded under the tension as she narrated for the stream. "They got this older black man on his knees in the middle of the street," she murmured, mostly to her phone. "They said he was harassing customers, but I watched him. He literally asked the guy not to throw trash on the ground. Now, they got like 2 cops here, one with his hand on his gun. Share this, y'all. Don't let them do him dirty in the dark." Leonard heard snatches of words. Live, stream, share. Float through the air like new vocabulary in a language he was still learning. His granddaughter had tried to explain it all to him, how a moment could go around the world in seconds now. He laughed and said, "Who want to see my old face on their phone?" "Leonard Hayes," Matthews said, reading off the ID Torres had finally retrieved from his jacket. "Date of birth, damn you old. You got warrants, Leonard." No, Officer Matthews, Leonard said. And if you'd allow me to stand, we could go inside and I could show you exactly why. You think I'm stupid? Matthews snapped. You think I don't know what's going on here? You see this neighborhood. You think you could just stroll up, bother customers, claim you on the block. You're not supposed to be here, sir. People live here now. A low murmur rippled through the crowd at that. Leonard's lips parted, a small crease forming between his brows. People have always lived here, he said. Some of us longer than others. Officer, someone called from the sidewalk. An older woman in church clothes, hat and all, stepped forward. She clutched a grocery bag like a shield. He ain't done nothing. I've known this man since I was a girl. Ma'am, step back, Torres said, her tone firm but not unkind. For your safety. The woman's eyes flashed, but she retreated to the line of onlookers. The livestream girl shifted position, angling to get Matthew's face and Leonard's body in the same frame. Okay, so now the older lady is saying he's lived here forever, she narrated. But the cop's acting like he just doesn't belong. Like his existence is a threat. Matthews took a breath. His radio crackled on his shoulder, the clipped voice of dispatch garbled by the noise of the street. He barely glanced at it. Sir, you're being detained on suspicion of trespassing and harassment, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. If you resist in any way, I will place you under arrest. Do you understand? Leonard inhaled slowly. His knees ached. He could feel the asphalt warmth seeping through his slacks, working its way into bone. I understand, he said, but I also understand that there's been a mistake. If you'll ask your watch commander to pull up parcel number 612 to 642 West Bend Avenue, you'll see my name. I finalized the purchase at 4 o'clock today. I can give you my attorney's number, or you can call Chief Ashford. Tell him you've got Leonard on his knees in the middle of the street. You threatening me with my boss now? Matthew's laugh was short, incredulous. That's cute. He reached for his cuffs. Leonard's heart kicked against his ribs. He forced himself to keep his voice level. I'm not threatening you, son, he said. I'm trying to keep you from making a mistake you can't take back. Turn around, Matthews said, ignoring him. Keep your hands where I can see them. The livestream comment feed was a blur now. He told them to call the chief. Wait, is he somebody? This is live, share this now. Torres shifted again, her eyes flicking to the restaurant windows where patrons had forgotten their meals in favor of pressing against the glass. Phones everywhere. Screens, little mirrors of the scene in front of them. Matthews reached for Leonard's wrists. And then, cutting through the police radio chatter and the murmured commentary and the low growl of idling engines, another sound rose. A ringtone, clear, insistent, right next to them. Everything paused for half a second, like the city had drawn in a breath. Matthew's hand froze on Leonard's arm. The ringtone kept going. And in that suspended moment, in that pocket of silence before anybody moved, the world and the power in it began to tilt. At 6 that morning, before the city had fully rubbed the sleep from its eyes, Leonard was already awake. The first light seeped around the edges of his thin curtains, painting a pale stripe across the framed black and white photographs on his bedroom wall. He lay for a moment, listening. The house spoke to him the way it always had. The low hum of the refrigerator, the occasional tick of pipes expanding in the crawl space, the distant whoosh of a bus on the main road. His joints muttered their complaints when he sat up. He patted the nightstand until his hand found his glasses case, flipped it open, slid the frames onto his nose. The world sharpened. He swung his feet to the floor and looked around his small bedroom, neat as a pin. There was a cross above the headboard, a shelf lined with worn paperbacks, a framed certificate from the city council praising decades of service to the community. On the dresser, next to a jar of loose coins, stood a photo of a younger Leonard in a suit, hand extended to a line of kids in backpacks. Behind him, a banner, West Bend Community Youth Program. He picked the photo up, as he often did, and looked at it for a long moment. My knees worked better back then, he murmured to the face in the frame. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. The new one, too big, too bright, screen full of icons he still mixed up. His granddaughter had insisted. Granddad, nobody uses flip phones anymore, she'd said, rolling her eyes but kissing his cheek afterward. What if I need to send you a picture? Or a video? What if there's an emergency and I need to share my location? He'd eventually let her march him into a store and come out with the sleek rectangle he still thought of as that contraption. Now, he squinted at it until the caller ID made sense. Alana, 7 a.m. He answered and pressed it to his ear. "Morning, baby," he said. "Morning, Granddad," came the warm, quick voice on the other end. "You up?" "I'm old, not lazy," he said. "What's this? You don't trust me to be awake on the biggest day of my life?" She laughed. He could picture her, hair in a bright scarf, city commute in full swing around her. "I trust you more than the sun," she said. "But I also know you forget breakfast when you're stressed. You eat." "I'm fixing to," he lied. "Eat. Doctor said you gotta keep your sugar steady. You know I'll ask Ms. Janine next door if you don't tell me the truth." He glanced toward the kitchen, where the coffee pot waited, empty. "I'll make some eggs," he conceded. "And toast." "Happy now." "Ecstatic. Text me a photo of the plate and of your face. Proof of life." He shook his head, smiling. "You know I don't text right." "Then just answer when I FaceTime," she said. "And Granddad, I'm proud of you. Mama would be too." His smile faltered. The ache that never fully went away tugged at his chest. "Thank you," he said softly. "I'm just signing some paperwork. Nothing glamorous." "That paperwork means your name's going to be on that whole block," she said. "The same block they used to tell you to stay off after dark." "That's not nothing." He swallowed. "Yeah," he said. "I guess it ain't. And remember," she added, her tone turning mock stern, "if anybody gives you trouble, you call me. Or you call Mr. Kraft. That's what lawyers are for." "And what about the police?" he asked, only half joking. "You already have Chief Ashford's number saved," she said. "He called you last week to thank you for funding that youth sports program, remember? He literally told you, and I quote, 'You call me if any of my officers forget who you are.'" "I remember," Leonard said. "Little girl, are you telling me to start dropping names?" "I'm telling you to stay alive and keep yourself respected," she said. "You pay for that respect in sweat." He was quiet for a moment. "Okay," he said. "I'll call if I need to, but I'm planning on things going smooth." "Plan for the best," she said. "But save the chief under favorites anyway." "I love you. I love you more," he said. When they hung up, the house felt a bit less empty. He shuffled into the kitchen, cracked a couple of eggs into a pan, and made himself eat, even when his stomach fluttered. There had been a lot of days in his life when he'd had to face people with power over him. Landlords, bank officers, city officials, police. You'd think an old man would be used to it. But today was different. Today, he would sit on the other side of the table. The bank conference room tried very hard not to look like a bank conference room. Airy windows, abstract art, glass carafe of infused water with slices of cucumber floating like pale green coins. A glossy table that reflected the trio of faces seated around it. Leonard, his attorney, and a representative from the development fund. The rep, a woman in a navy dress, slid the final document across the polished wood. "This is the last one, Mr. Hayes," she said. "Once you sign here, the Westbend Partnership Trust officially owns parcels 610 through 646. Your board will control disbursement and leasing, and the city's community benefits contract is locked in." Leonard stared down at the line where his name was printed in crisp, professional font. Leonard J. Hayes. His fingers trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. He'd signed a lot of things in his life. Permission slips, grant applications, complaint forms. Once, decades ago, a police statement that more or less said, "We hit you because we could. You're just lucky we didn't hit you harder." Back then, he'd signed because he was scared. Now, he signed because he wasn't. He set pen to paper and wrote his name, slow and careful, like a prayer. When he was done, he exhaled. "There it is," the attorney said, grinning. "Congratulations, Mr. Hayes. You are, in all but name, the landlord of an entire block." "I still don't like the word landlord," Leonard murmured, but the corners of his mouth twitched. "Makes me sound like I'm here to squeeze people." "You're here to protect people from getting squeezed," the rep said. "Your trust charter is one of the strongest community covenants we've seen. Affordable commercial leases. Caps on rent increases for legacy businesses. Guaranteed space for the youth center and the senior day program. You did good." He thought of the nights he'd lain awake doing math in his head, tallying donations and grants, the decades of scraping and saving from his barber shop, the quiet investments done on the advice of a young financial advisor who'd said, you can make your money sit in a savings account, or you can make it grow for your people. He thought of his late daughter, laboring over spreadsheets at the kitchen table, the two of them arguing politely about percentages and risk. You're not just cutting hair, she told him once, eyes shining. You're moving numbers with purpose. He blinked away the memory. I didn't do it alone, he said. A lot of folks put in a lot of $10 bills. Those $10 bills add up, the attorney said. Westbund Partnership's assets are nothing to sneeze at. She slid another document toward him. The deed itself, embossed seal catching the light. For your records, she said. The buyer's copy. The county clerk's office has already recorded it digitally. It'll show up on property searches by close of business. Leonard brushed his fingertips over the heavy paper, as if to make sure it was real. Close of business, he repeated. He glanced at the wall clock. It was just past 4. Would it be all right if I walked over there this evening? He asked. I know that might sound silly, but I just want to see it. With my own eyes. It's not silly at all, the rep said. It's yours now. Walk it as many times as you like. The attorney leaned back, folding her arms behind her head. Just don't go around telling people I own this block like some cartoon tycoon, she said, teasing. You'll freak them out. Leonard chuckled. Don't worry, he said. I'm still Leonard from Westbund. I just happen to have some paperwork now. The rep's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Group text from the café on the corner, she said. They're doing some kind of grand opening special tonight. Free pastries, live music, all that. Should be hopping over there. Leonard nodded, picturing the sleek café with its glass front and minimalist decor. When it had gone up, some of his old friends had grumbled. Another place we can't afford, they'd said. We're going to negotiate with them, Leonard had replied. About hiring local, about pricing, about community nights. It's in their lease. Now, he thought of that as he carefully slid the deed into the leather folder he'd brought, the same one he'd carried resumes in when he'd been looking for work 40 years ago. Mr. Hayes, the attorney said, tones softening. You know you've made some people nervous, right? Not us, not the city, but the folks who are used to doing whatever they want in the neighborhood. They're not going to like having to answer to a board made up of people who look like you. He met her gaze. I know, he said. They've been nervous about me all my life. This is nothing new. If anybody tries anything, she said, reaching in her bag, you call me. You call the chief. You call the mayor if you have to. I'm putting all those numbers on a card you can keep in your pocket. She scribbled quickly on a small white card and handed it over. He slid into the folder pocket next to the deed. Don't go getting yourself arrested on your own property, she said lightly. He smiled. I'll do my best, he said. He had no idea, as he walked out of the bank and into the late afternoon sunlight, that by nightfall that sentence would land differently. The first thing Leonard noticed when he stepped onto Westbund Avenue that evening was how loud it had gotten. Music pulsed from a new cafe, some thumping beat that made the glass vibrate. People spilled out onto the sidewalk with paper cups and pastries on little plates. A chalkboard sign announced half OFF lattes and live acoustics set at 9. He walked slowly, his folder tucked under his arm, nodding to faces he recognized. Ms. Johnson from the laundromat, closing up her shop. Mr. Patel, sweeping in front of the corner grocery. A cluster of teenagers hanging near the bus stop, their laughter bright. He loved this block. Every chipped brick, every crooked awning. They love him back, mostly. He was the man who'd hired their kids for summer jobs, who'd officiated their rec league basketball games, who'd told them stories about how the street used to be before the fancy condos went up. He paused in front of the old brick building that had once housed a furniture store, then a church, and now, according to the plans, would soon host the community center. He pressed his palm against the cool surface. Mine, he said softly. Ours. Behind him, a young man in a designer hoodie brushed past, shoulder connecting with Leonard's. Watch it, Leonard said, startled. The young man glanced back, eyes skimming over Leonard's cardigan, his aging frame, dismissing him. You watch it, old man, he said. He flicked his wrist, and the empty pastry bag he'd been holding fluttered to the ground. Leonard looked at the bag, then at the nearby trash can, not 5 feet away. "Hey, son," he said. "Trash can's right there." The young man rolled his eyes. "Mind your business," he said. "This is private property. I'm a paying customer. You just standing there." Leonard took a breath. "This is my business," he said. "And it's everybody's business when we decide whether the street is for all of us or just some of us." "Whatever," the young man muttered, heading back inside. The pastry bag stayed where it had fallen, white against the dark sidewalk. Leonard bent slowly, picked it up, and dropped it into the trash can himself. From the corner of his eye, he noticed the café manager watching him through the glass. Their gazes met for a moment. The manager's mouth tightened. He turned away, picking up the phone. Leonard thought nothing of it. He should have. Unit 214, respond to a disturbance call, westbound and 6th. Dispatch had said 30 minutes later. Caller reports an aggressive male harassing customers, refusing to leave the premises. 10-4 dispatch, Matthews had replied, flipping on a light bar. Torres had glanced over from the passenger seat. "Another aggressive male," she'd said. "That phrase is doing a lot of work lately." "They give us the words, we answer the call," Matthews said, eyes on the road. "We don't write the script." "That's kind of the problem sometimes," she'd murmured, but he hadn't asked her to repeat it. By the time they pulled up to the cafe, the manager was already on the sidewalk, pointing angrily at Leonard. "That's him," he'd said. "He won't leave. He's scaring customers. Keeps saying creepy stuff about how he's watching the building." Matthews had seen an older black man in a cardigan, standing calmly with a folder under his arm. He hadn't seen the folder. He'd seen the cardigan, the age, the skin. He'd felt that faint twitch in his gut, the one he'd been trained not to name. Now, here they were, knees on the asphalt, hands on his head, live video broadcasting to thousands, and a phone ringing. The ringtone was coming from inside Leonard's cardigan pocket. Not the new smartphone, that was in his pants. This was an older sound, shriller, from the ancient flip phone he'd refused to give up entirely. Matthews frowned. "Whose phone is that?" he snapped. Leonard tilted his head slightly. "That would be mine," he said. "My old one. If you let me answer it, we might clear this up very quickly." "Not happening," Matthews said. "Torres, can you?" His own radio crackled, louder now. "Unit 214, dispatch," came the voice, sharper this time. "We've got an urgent message for you. Advise status." Matthews exhaled impatiently and thumbed the reply button. "Dispatch 214, he said. "On scene at Westbound and 6th. Suspect detained. Proceeding to arrest for." "Negative on arrest, 214, dispatch cut in." There was an edge to the dispatcher's tone he didn't often hear. "Stand by for immediate patch-through from command." "Command," Matthews muttered. "What the?" The crowd had gone quieter. Even the livestream girl had stopped narrating for a second, her phone still raised. Comments still cascaded. "Why they stopping? Did you hear that?" "Command. Bro, this is about to get interesting." Leonard closed his eyes briefly. Maybe it's Alana, he thought. Or Mr. Kraft. Maybe somebody saw. His flip phone kept ringing, muffled but insistent. "Officer Matthews," Torres said softly, eyes sliding toward the crowd. "Maybe we should check in with the watch commander before we." Radio static hissed, then cleared. "Unit 214, this is Captain Rivera," came a new voice, firm and unmistakably unhappy. "Status report now." Matthews straightened instinctively. "Captain, we responded to a disturbance call," he said, glancing around at the watching faces. Male subject was loitering in front of. "Describe the subject," Rivera cut in. Older male, African-American, approximately late 60s or early 70s. 72, Leonard murmured. 70-ish, Matthews amended. He was harassing customers, refusing to leave private property. He's currently detained in... "You have him kneeling in the street?" Rivera's voice sharpened. "Is that correct, Officer Matthews?" Matthews' eyes flicked to the girl with the phone, to the sea of lenses. He swallowed. "Yes, sir," he said. "For safety." He was arguing, wouldn't comply, and there was a pause on the line. When Rivera spoke again, his voice was careful. "Officer Matthews, is the subject's name Leonard Hayes?" Matthews blinked. He looked down at the ID card in Torres' hand, at the name he glanced over without recognition. He felt something cold slip down his spine. "Yes, sir," he said slowly. The flip phone in Leonard's pocket stopped ringing. At the exact same second, every officer's radio on the block seemed to bark at once. "All units, hold." A different voice boomed. One Matthews recognized with a lurch of dread. "This is Chief Ashford. Do not lay another hand on that man. That is a direct order." The street went dead silent. Inside the cafe, someone dropped a cup. The sound of ceramic shattering echoed like a gunshot. Tora's mouth parted slightly. She took half a step back from Leonard, as if distance might soften the weight of what was happening. The livestream girl whispered, "Oh my God." The words caught by her mic and broadcast to hundreds, then thousands. "Chief just came on the radio. WDH. Wait, that means he knows the old man." Matthews felt the blood drain from his face. "Chief," with respect, he began, voice tight. "We responded to a call. We had probable cause. The manager here." "Put the manager on," Ashford snapped. The manager jumped, startled, as the radio was thrust toward him. He fumbled with the button. Hello," he stammered. "Chief, this is David Mercer, location manager for Bystanders Café. I called about. What exactly did you tell my officers, Mr. Mercer?" Ashford's voice was glacial. I said that there was an aggressive man outside, bothering customers, refusing to leave, and acting like he owned the place." Mercer said, glancing nervously at Leonard, who remained kneeling, hands behind his head, eyes on the horizon. "And does he own the place?" Ashford asked. Mercer hesitated. "Yeah, no," he said weakly. "I mean, we lease from a management company. We don't." "Let me help you," another voice said suddenly, cutting into the stream of audio. It was higher, precise. "This is Karen Lee from City Property Management. I've been trying to reach your number, Mr. Mercer. We just got an automated alert from the county records office 15 minutes ago. There's a transfer of ownership on that property." Transfer," Mercer repeated, throat bobbing. "Yes," Lee said. Papers rustled audibly on the line. "Parcels 610 through 646 Westbourne Avenue, effective as of 4:07 p.m. today, are now owned by the Westbourne Partnership Trust. The named trustee of record is," she paused, double-checking, "Mr. Leonard J. Hayes, the man you have on his knees in the middle of the street." The words hung in the evening air. Someone in the crowd let out a low whistle. "Damn," a teenager muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. The livestream comments exploded. "He owns the block?" So they made the landlord kneel on his own sidewalk. "I can't breathe, this is too much." Matthews felt sweat bead at the back of his neck beneath his collar. "Officers," Chief Ashford said slowly, "you are publicly detaining and humiliating a 72-year-old man who has put more into that neighborhood than any of us. A man whose foundation has paid for half the youth programs your own kids attend. A man I had lunch with last week to discuss police-community relations." Each phrase was a brick stacking into a wall there was no climbing down from. "I want those cuffs off him," Ashford continued. "I want him standing. I want an apology. And then I want both of you back at the station to explain, in person, how you managed to misread this situation so catastrophically. Do I make myself clear?" Matthew's mouth had gone dry. "Yes, Chief," he forced out. Behind him, a horn blared. A car stuck in the backed-up traffic, impatience cutting through the tension. Torres moved first. She stepped forward, her expression stricken, and carefully unhooked Leonard's fingers from behind his head. "Sir," she said softly, "you can stand now." Leonard's legs trembled as he unfolded himself on the asphalt. A sharp pain lanced through his knees. He winced, steadied himself with a hand on the hood of the squad car. Torres instinctively reached out, then seemed to think better of touching him again, letting her hand hover in the empty air. For a second, it was eerily quiet. The neon open sign in the cafe window flickered. The music had been cut mid-track, leaving only the distant sounds of the city, a dog barking somewhere, the faint wail of an ambulance blocks away. Leonard straightened, rolling his shoulders back. His cardigan was smeared with dirt. There were dark spots starting to form on the knees of his slacks where the fabric had abraded. He looked at Matthews. The young officer couldn't meet his eyes. "I believe the chief requested an apology," Leonard said. His voice was calm. His eyes were not. The apology, when it came, was a painful, halting thing. I'm sorry, sir, Matthews said, standing stiffly. His hand twitched by his side. I misjudged the situation. I shouldn't have had you kneel. It was unnecessary. Leonard gazed at him for a long moment. Why did you? He asked quietly. Matthews swallowed. Safety, he said. Standard procedure when a subject is non-compliant. I complied with everything you asked, Leonard said, his tone still gentle, the way he might speak to a student who'd gotten an answer wrong. I spoke calmly. I told you who I was. I suggested you call your superiors. What part of that was non-compliant? The crowd was dead silent. Even the livestream comments seemed to slow, watchers sensing that they were no longer observing an incident so much as bearing witness to something. Matthew's jaw clenched. He floundered for a different word. Aggressive, threatening, out of place. Each word came with a weight he couldn't pretend wasn't there, not with phones pointed at him from every direction. You were challenging my authority. Leonard nodded once. And that made you feel unsafe, he said. Yeah, Matthews said bitterly. If you want to put it that way. Leonard took a small step closer, wincing as his knees protested. The circle around them tightened. Officer Matthews, he said. I taught kids in this neighborhood for 30 years. I've had 12-year-olds get in my face, cuss me out, throw chairs. I never once made one of them kneel in the street. That's not the same, Matthews muttered, cheeks flaming. It's more the same than you think, Leonard said. He let the words hang for a heartbeat, then looked away, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. I'm all right, he said loudly enough for the bystanders to hear. Y'all can go on home. Get out of the street before someone gets hurt who doesn't deserve it. A ripple of uncertain laughter moved through the people. The spell broke a little. Engines restarted. A few cars inched forward. The livestream girl stayed where she was, phone up. Her voice shook as she spoke to her audience. Okay, she said. So y'all heard it. Chief came on the radio himself. Confirmed this man owns the block. They made the owner kneel. On a live stream. I don't even know what to say. Her view count ticked upward, a number in the corner climbing with every second. Comments flooded in. Tag me in that Chief video. We need his Cash App. I work for City Hall. I'm sending this to everybody. Leonard's flip phone buzzed again in his pocket. Go ahead and answer that, Mr. Hayes, Torres said quietly. Please. He pulled it out with slow, stiff fingers and flipped it open. Hello, he said. Granddad. Alana's voice burst into his ear, high and tight with panic. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm on Westbund, he said. Things got a little dramatic. But I'm standing now. I'm watching you right now, you know, she said, voice wobbling. Somebody sent me the video. You're trending, Granddad. They had you on your knees. He closed his eyes briefly, leaning against the squad car. I'm all right, he said again. Don't you cry over me now. There's going to be enough tears on this street, as it is. He hung up before she could argue, knowing she'd head for her car the second she ended the call. He turned back to Matthews and Torres. We're going to talk about this, he said. Not just tonight. Not just on the news. We're going to have a real conversation. In a room where nobody has their knee on the asphalt. He looked at Torres. You included officer. I saw you hesitate. She flinched, then nodded once. Yes, sir, she said. A sir this time, not from a script. From somewhere deep in the crowd, a voice called out, We got your back, Mr. Hayes. Others chimed in. We love you, Mr. Leonard. You want us to march? He shook his head, raising a hand. No marching tonight, he said. Tonight, y'all go home and tell your people what you saw. Make sure nobody forgets when they try to say it wasn't as bad as the video makes it look. He glanced at the livestream girl. That goes for you too, he said. She swallowed. Yes, sir, she said. He gave her a small nod. Keep that thing rolling, he said. The world's watching now. Let's show them something worth seeing. The world did watch. By midnight, the video had been shared hundreds of thousands of times. Clips of Leonard kneeling on the asphalt. The moment the chief's voice thundered through the radio, the stunned silence as the deeds were read over the air. All of it looped endlessly on screens big and small. Cable news hosts weighed in, eyebrows knitted in professional concern. Another example of implicit bias? One asked. The power of social media in holding authorities accountable, another declared, eyes gleaming. But beneath the punditry, real things were moving. At the police station, Matthew sat in a small, fluorescent-lit room, hands folded in his lap, as internal affairs played the livestream footage on a large monitor. Every flinch, every barked command, every dismissive glance was frozen and rewound. "What were you thinking here, officer?" the investigator asked, tapping the screen at the moment Leonard first mentioned owning the block. "I thought he was lying," Matthews said, staring at his own face on the screen. Taut, hard, unfamiliar. "People say stuff like that all the time. You'll be sorry, I'm somebody. You can't take every." "Did you consider checking?" the investigator asked. "Running his name before you escalated?" "There wasn't time," Matthews said. "There was a crowd. It was getting heated. I needed control." "You had control," the investigator said. "You had a 72-year-old man in a cardigan with his hands visible at all times. Where was the threat, officer? Show me the threat." Matthews opened his mouth, then closed it. He thought of the manager's voice. Aggressive male, refusing to leave. The way the word aggressive had lodged in his brain like a burr. He thought of the dozens of training videos he'd watched, the ones that started with an officer letting his guard down and ended with a funeral. He thought of how none of those videos starred a man who looked like Leonard Hayes. He had no answer. In another part of town, in a sleek office lined with framed stock certificates, executives of the national café chain sat around a conference table, pale and sweaty as their social media manager read aloud. "The hashtag kneel on your own block is trending," she said. "Millions of uses. People are calling for boycotts. They're sharing screenshots of our diversity statement and asking why the manager called the cops on the actual property owner. They're tagging our investors." One of the executives rubbed his temples. "Who is this man?" he asked. "Give me everything. Background, net worth, connections." "He's not rich, the PR director said cautiously, reading off a tablet. "Not the way our investors are. But he's known. Local hero type. Former educator. Runs a community trust. Apparently, he helped mediate after the protests a few years back. The mayor gave him a key to the city." The executive swore quietly. "So we're the villains in his origin story," he muttered. "Fantastic. What do we do?" the social media manager asked. "We already put out a statement saying we're looking into the incident, but that's not going to cut it. They want heads. They're going to get at least one," the executive said grimly. "Get me HR. That manager's gone by morning. And draft a public apology to Mr. Hayes personally. We're going to offer him something." "What?" the PR director asked. He stared at the replay of Leonard on the screen, the way the old man lifted himself from the asphalt with slow dignity, the way he spoke. "Whatever he asks for," the executive said finally. "We can't afford not to." In a small house not far from Westbourne, Leonard sat at his kitchen table with ice packs on his knees and his granddaughter's head on his shoulder. Her tears had dried in stiff tracks on her cheeks, but her hand still clutched his cardigan as if he might evaporate if she let go. "You could have been killed," she whispered, "in front of everyone. They could have shot you, Granddad. They've done it for less." He stroked her hair. "I know," he said. "Why didn't you yell?" she demanded suddenly, pulling back to look at him. "Why didn't you shout? I own this block. Why didn't you? I don't know, call the chief right then." He smiled faintly. "Would you have believed me if you were standing where that boy was, with that badge on your chest?" he asked. "Yes," she said fiercely. He lifted an eyebrow. "Maybe you would," he conceded. "But he wouldn't have. And yelling would have just made me seem like more of what he already thought I was. An angry old black man, making trouble. So you knelt," she said, bitter. "You let them humiliate you. Again." His eyes grew distant. "This isn't the first time I've been on my knees, baby," he said softly. "First time was when I was 9, hands laced on top of my head while an officer told me if I moved, he'd crack my skull. Said it right in front of my mother." She swallowed hard. "I swore that day that if I ever had to kneel again, it'd be on my own terms," he said. "Tonight, I knelt so the whole city could see what it still does to men like me. Sometimes you gotta let folks show out in front of a mirror." He gestured toward the phone buzzing on the table, lighting up with notification after notification. "This right here is a big mirror," he said. She sniffed. "You really gonna use a viral video to teach lessons?" she asked. He chuckled. then winced as his knees throbbed. "I'm old," he said. "I'll use whatever tools they give me." Her phone chimed, another incoming call. She glanced at the screen and gasped. "Granddad," she said. "It's the mayor." He blinked. "Tell him to hold on a minute," Leonard said. "I haven't decided what I'm asking for yet." They settled on a press conference. "I know you don't like cameras," the mayor had said over the phone, "but people need to hear from you directly. We can't let this just be another outrage cycle. You have a unique opportunity here." Leonard had sighed. "Seems to me there wouldn't be such a cycle if y'all fixed what needed fixing in the first place," he'd said. "But all right, I'll talk. On one condition." "Name it," the mayor had said. "I want those officers in the room," Leonard said. "No hiding. No anonymous apologies. And I want it at Westbourne. On my block. Not at City Hall. Not in some fancy auditorium. You can bring your podium to me." Now, 2 weeks later, Leonard stood under a hastily erected tent in front of the soon-to-be community center. Cameras bristled like porcupine quills at the edge of the crowd. Reporters murmured into microphones, their hair sprayed into immobility. Behind Leonard, a simple banner hung: Westbourne Partnership Trust and City of Riverstone Community Accountability Forum. Matthews and Torres sat in the front row, in plain clothes, flanked by colleagues and union reps. Matthews' knee bounced up and down, restless. Alana stood near the side, arms folded, watching everything with narrowed eyes. The mayor stepped to the microphone first, delivering a prepared statement about regrettable incidents and commitment to reform. Chief Ashford followed, his tone more blunt. "We failed Mr. Hayes that night," he said. "We failed the community. Our officers let bias and misplaced fear guide their actions. That will not go unanswered." He outlined the disciplinary actions. Matthews suspended without pay for 3 months and removed from patrol duties, pending retraining. Torres formally reprimanded but retained. The manager from the café fired. Mandatory bias training for the entire department redesigned in partnership with community leaders. "And now," Ashford said, stepping back, "you don't need to hear from me. You need to hear from the man who should never have had to be on his knees that night in the first place. Mr. Hayes." Leonard walked up to the microphone. His limp was more pronounced today. His knees had not forgiven him for the asphalt. He took his time adjusting the mic, ignoring the impatient shifting of reporters. When he spoke, his voice was clear, carrying beyond the tent, down the block. "Evening," he said. "Most of y'all know me. Those who don't, you've probably seen that video." A low murmur of assent rippled through the crowd. "I've lived on Westbourne longer than half these buildings have been standing," he said. "I've watched this street go from lively to dangerous to abandoned to trendy. I've buried friends who didn't make it through those changes. I've watched kids I taught grow up to become cops, teachers, nurses, and yes, sometimes suspects." He paused, eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Matthews. "When I was a boy," he said, "my mama taught me that there are 2 kinds of power in this world. The kind that comes from fear and the kind that comes from respect. Fear will make people kneel. Respect will make them stand up straighter." He let that sink in. "The night Officer Matthews put me on my knees," he continued, "he thought he was using fear to keep control. But what he really did was show all of you exactly how fragile that kind of control is. It took one phone call, one voice on the radio, and the whole thing flipped. Because his authority was borrowed. Mine is rooted." He tapped his chest. "Rooted in years," he said. "In service. In relationships. In the money we scraped together $10 at a time to buy this block so we could stop begging other people to treat us right." He turned slightly toward the officers in the front row. "I'm not here to ruin anybody," he said. "I told my lawyer from the start, I don't want to check with my name on it in exchange for my dignity. My dignity can't be bought. What I asked for was change you can measure." He took points off on his fingers. "A civilian review board with real teeth. Mandatory de-escalation training that includes elders in the room. Not just young men in hoodies, but old folks in cardigans. Because bias doesn't age out. A commitment from this cafe chain to fund scholarships for kids in this neighborhood. And a youth advisory council that gets to sit down with the chief once a month and tell him, face to face, how it feels to be on the other side of that badge." He looked back at the crowd. "That's what we got," he said. "That's what we'll be holding them to." He took a breath. But I need y'all to hear something else, he said, voice softening. What happened to me is not special. The only special thing is that somebody held up a camera and the whole world decided to watch. I've been disrespected quieter than this. I've had credit cards declined and checks double-checked and security guards follow me around a store. I've had folks ask me if I'm lost on my own street. No cameras then. A murmur of agreement went up from the older faces in the crowd. So here's my request, he said. Not just to the police, not just to the company that runs that cafe, but to every person listening in this city and beyond. Check your first thought. When you see a black man, old or young, what's the word that pops into your head? Threat? Problem? Trespasser? He smiled sadly. Or neighbor? Parent? Teacher? Maybe even owner? He spread his hands. I don't want Officer Matthews' head on a spike, he said. What I want is for the next time he sees somebody like me, his first thought is not suspect. I want him to feel uncomfortable with how easy it was to make me kneel. He looked directly at Matthews now. You're going to carry that video with you the rest of your life, son, he said. Every time you put on that uniform, you're going to know people have seen what you did. You can let that make you defensive, or you can let it make you better. That choice is yours. Matthews' eyes shone, though he blinked hard. Yes, sir, he said hoarsely. Leonard turned back to the microphones. The internet will move on, he said. It always does. Some new outrage will trend. Some new video will go viral. But the folks on this block, we don't get to move on. We have to move forward. Together. He leaned in slightly, his gaze steady. So, I'm asking you, each of you, to do something boring and hard, he said. Not just share a clip. Not just post a hashtag. I'm asking you to look at how you walk through the world. Who you cross the street to avoid. Who you call the cops on. Who you believe when two sides tell a story. He smiled, but there was steel behind it. I'm asking you to trade fear power for respect power, he said. To see dignity before danger. That's how we change more than just one headline. He stepped back from the microphone. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then, slowly, people began to clap. It wasn't the explosive roar of a rally. It was steadier, heavier, palm against palm, neighbors and strangers alike. The sound rolled down the block, bouncing off brick and glass. For the first time in a long time, the noise on Westbourne sounded like hope. 7 months later, the mural was finished. It stretched across the side of the old furniture store-turned community center, a sweep of color that caught the eye from 3 blocks away. On one end, a pair of hands planting a sapling. In the middle, kids playing basketball, braided hair, and sneakers in midair. On the other end, an older man standing tall, walking cane planted firmly, back straight. They'd argued about whether to make the older man look explicitly like Leonard. He'd insisted on something more symbolic. I'm not the point, he told the artist. I'm just one tree in this forest. The artist had smiled and given the figure a cardigan anyway. On a mild Saturday, the grand opening of the Hayes Center for Community Learning and Arts drew a crowd that spilled into the street. Kids tugged their parents' hands, pointing at the mural. Food trucks lined the curb. The air smelled like grilled meat and popcorn and fresh paint. Leonard stood near the entrance, leaning on his cane. His knees still complained on damp mornings, but he'd stopped cursing them. They'd earned their aches. Alana fussed with his tie. Stand still, she scolded. You're going to be in pictures. I've been in more pictures this year than in the last 70, he grumbled affectionately. Inside the center, volunteers hurried to put finishing touches on classrooms that would host coding workshops, literacy programs, dance classes, and city council candidate forums. The gym floor gleamed, the lines freshly painted for basketball and volleyball. In one room, a circle of folding chairs waited for that month's police community dialogue session. On the wall hung a flyer. Listening circle, officers and youth, all voices welcome. Matthews stood near that doorway, hands clasped, out of uniform. He'd completed a suspension, undergone intensive training that had been more uncomfortable than any physical drill. He'd also started coming to these sessions. At first, he'd sat in the back, arms crossed, jaw tight, as teenagers told him exactly what they thought of him. You're all the same, one had said. You see us like we're one bad day away from a mugshot. You only come through here to catch us, not protect us, another had added. He'd wanted to argue, to say not all officers, to list the times he'd helped. He'd swallowed those words instead, letting their anger wash over him. One evening, during a break, Leonard had sat beside him, offering no grand speech, just sharing a bag of chips, passing them back and forth. "You coming back next time?" Leonard had asked. Matthews had nodded. "Good," Leonard had said. "We can't fix what we don't stay for." Now, Matthews watched him from across the crowd, then squared his shoulders and approached. "Mr. Hayes," he said, "congratulations on the center." "Thank you, officer." Leonard paused, then corrected himself. "Cole." Matthews' eyes flickered at the first name use. "I wanted to tell you," he began, then hesitated. I've been reading, taking some classes, on history, on bias. I've been trying to understand." Leonard regarded him steadily. "And what have you learned?" he asked. "That I don't know nearly as much as I thought," Matthews said with a wry half-smile. "That my fear wasn't coming from nowhere, but it also wasn't all mine. It's in the air, in the stories we're told. And I can't control all that. But I can control what I do when I feel it." Leonard nodded slowly. "That's a good start," he said. "You keep going, you'll be all right. Not perfect. There's no perfect in this work. But better." Matthews swallowed. "I still think about that night," he said. "Every day. I still hear your knees hit the ground in my head. I don't know if I can ever make that right." "You can't," Leonard said simply. "But you can make it mean something." He gestured toward the center. "Help us fill this place with kids who never have to kneel for you," he said. "That's meaning." Matthews nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, sir," he said. Alana appeared at Leonard's elbow, looping her arm through his. "Granddad, they want you up front," she said. "Ribbon cutting time." He chuckled. "Always some cutting going on," he said. "At least this time it's not my pride." They walked to the front steps, where a large ribbon stretched between two posts. The mayor handed him an oversized pair of scissors, grinning for the cameras. "Ready, Mr. Hayes?" she asked. He looked out at the crowd. He saw faces from every chapter of his life. Kids he'd coached who were now parents themselves, elders in Sunday hats, new arrivals in designer sunglasses and vintage band tees, officers in uniform, journalists, the livestream girl who'd filmed that first night, now working with the center's media lab to teach kids about ethical storytelling. He saw, in their gazes, a mix of gratitude, curiosity, skepticism, hope. He lifted the scissors. "I'm ready," he said. The blades closed with a satisfying snip. The crowd erupted in cheers. As people streamed into the building, Leonard stepped aside, watching. This was the work. Not the viral video. Not the press conference. This, kids running squealing down hallways they could call theirs. Elders finding a place to sit and talk. Officers entering a space where their authority wasn't automatic but had to be earned. He felt a hand slip into his. Ms. Johnson from a laundromat stood beside him, eyebrows raised. "You did good, Leonard," she said. "Never thought I'd see the day someone from this block owned it for us, not for some hedge fund downtown." He squeezed her hand. "I didn't do it by myself," he said. "We all pushed. I just happened to be the one they pushed to the front." She nodded toward the street. Every time I walk past that spot where you knelt," she said, "I remember how my granddaddy told me about sitting at those lunch counters years ago, letting folks spit on him for the camera. I never understood how he could stand it. Thought I'd be too angry. But watching you, I think I get it a little more now." He was quiet for a moment. "Courage isn't always teeth bared," he said. "Sometimes it's teeth clenched. Sometimes it's letting your knees hit the ground so your grandchildren can keep their heads high." She sighed. "I just wish it didn't still take that," she said. "Me too," he said. "That's the part my knees don't forgive." They stood there, side by side, watching their neighbors fill the building that belonged to them now, in more than name. Above them, the mural figure in the cardigan seemed to watch too, pain eyes fixed on a horizon only artists could fully see. Later that night, when the music had faded and the last volunteers had gone home, Leonard sat in his living room with the lights off, the glow of the TV painting his face. A news program was replaying the footage from 7 months ago, side by side with clips from the center's opening. On the left, a grainy frame of him kneeling, asphalt blur beneath him, cop towering overhead. On the right, him standing with his cane, scissors in hand, ribbon fluttering. The anchor spoke in that practiced tone of solemn uplift. What began as yet another troubling video of police overreach has, in Riverstone at least, led to concrete change, she said. But activists warn that for every Leonard Hayes, there are countless others whose names we never learn, whose knees hit the ground off camera. The question now is, will this be a turning point, or just a moment? Leonard turned the sound down. He didn't need a stranger on the screen to tell him what he already knew. He sat there for a long time, the flicker of images washing over him. His phone buzzed with messages. Kids texting thank for the center, old friends sharing memories, the mayor sending yet another link to yet another article. He ignored them for a while. Eventually, curiosity tugged him toward the device. He picked it up and opened the video that had started it all. He watched himself walk down Westbourne, folder under his arm. Watched the manager scowl. Watched the cops roll up, every movement preserved from a stranger's perspective. When he reached the part where his knees hit the asphalt, he paused. The frame froze on his bent body. He studied that man. The ache in his own knees flared in sympathy. "You did all right," he told the screen softly. "You did what you could with what you had." He fast-forwarded to the moment when the chief's voice came over the radio, when the world shifted. He let it play, then stopped again just after he rose from the ground. The camera had caught his face then, the anger, the hurt, the stubborn, steady dignity. The world had shared that face thousands, millions of times. He wondered, not for the first time, what it had done to the hearts watching. Did it soften them? Harden them? Did it make them see? Or did it just add to the endless scroll of images they half remembered? He didn't know. He wasn't sure he could know. What he did know was that tomorrow, he'd be back at the center, sitting with kids, meeting with officers, walking his block. The camera would be on sometimes, off other times. The work would continue either way. He turned the TV off. The room fell into darkness, save for the faint glow from the street lamps outside. In that quiet, a question rose, not from the screen, not from the reporters, not even from his granddaughter. From somewhere older, deeper. He turned it over in his mind, then let it go, sending it out into the nighttime like a prayer, not to any specific heaven, but to the people who might hear it. If you'd been standing on that street the night they made me kneel, who would you have been? The officer. Sure enough, he was right that he never paused to listen. The one who hesitated but stayed silent. The manager making the call because a man on the sidewalk didn't fit his mental picture of who could belong. The bystander crossing the street, eyes averted, telling himself it wasn't his business. The one holding the phone, filming, heart pounding. Would you have spoken up? Shared the video? Checked your own first thought when you saw my face on that screen? He leaned back in his chair, eyes closing. As you watch me rise from that asphalt, as you hear my knees crack and see me steady myself and keep walking, what will you do differently tomorrow? Not what will you post. What will you do? He didn't know who all would ever truly answer that. He only knew that the question needed to be asked. And now, sitting in the quiet with his knees aching and his block breathing outside his window, he offers it to you, too. Not as an accusation, but as an invitation. When someone like him is humiliated in front of you, or next to you, or through your screen, will you help keep them on their knees with your silence? Or help them stand with your courage? The answer won't go viral, but it might just change everything that matters.